Yo,
This side I was sitting on.
you sit down there. They didn't help me out down there. Yep. And I'll be up over here.
Said this was good.
Yeah. If you have books, I can show you. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're. I think you're ready over here. Yeah, I did turn on. It's the same switch. How does the volume matter?
Well, I'll make this awkward. Probably stand for a little bit. Go back and check the volume on everything. How y'all doing?
Awesome.
Great.
All right. Motor City Haitan, MC3. I appreciate you guys coming out to our first panel this evening. We'll change it up a little bit. We are talking about, the title says African spirituality in horror and comics. The African is right, but it might not be as spiritual as you may have assumed it would be. But it's definitely going to be about horror for sure. These two gentlemen to my left here are on my list when anyone ever asks me who's the hottest in indie black comics. My brother Luke here and Greg are two of the biggest names that I put up every single time. Greg Elysee is the creator of Haitan, the Word Spider. The title right here. Some of you might be familiar. And speaking of spirituality and folklore, African folklore, that's a Nazi spell backwards. Yeah. This is my channel. And also have Crescent City Monsters. These brothers are very talented writers, collaborators, publishers. And I'm going to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves very shortly, but right off the rip, if we can give these two brothers a round of applause, I'd appreciate it. And before I forget, my name is Haitan. I'll be your moderator. I don't feel right sitting down, but I guess I should feel good standing like this. I'm already Haitan. I'm creator of Beat Game Comics and Black Comics Universe. You can find that stuff online. I'm a big advocate of Black indie comics and Black indie comic creators. And we're going to get this conversation going. These two brothers both happen to be Haitian Americans as well. And I butcher their last names all the time. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves and tell a little bit about what they did. Sorry, Greg. Introduce yourself. Sorry.
My name is Greg Anderson. I'm born and raised in New York, from a Haitian background. And I'm the writer and creator of Haitan, the Word Spider, which is based off of the stories of a Nazi spider from West Africa, Caribbean folklore. The character is his son. It's a two of them trying to stop creatures while trying not to drive each other crazy at the same time. implementing mythologies from Africa, Caribbean, African American, stories, folklore, traditional figures as well. This is showcase that there's various gods and heroes from other cultures. It's not just Greek myths and European fairy tales, even though I grew up on them, I still love the hell out of them. But this is showcase that we also have our own figures from various aspects of the Black diaspora that we can just have a lot of fun with. We can do our own sort of interpretations and just, as I said, just have fun with it. And a lot of my stories, not even just It's Not, a lot of other books that I've also written has been a way of trying to implement a lot of aspects of Black culture, figures, and trying to change the narrative of it, of how we're usually represented.
Hi, my name is Elysee and Newton Lilavois. As Monty mentioned, I'm Haitian American. I was born in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Grew up in Brooklyn, New York. Currently reside in the Brooklyn Bronx, New York City. I'm known for Crescent City Monsters. It's a supernatural horror tale. It takes place in New Orleans. One of the reasons why it does take place in New Orleans is because there's a cultural connection between New Orleans and Haiti, going way back. So some of that similarity kind of carries over into New Orleans. And so I wanted to play with that aspect of that New Orleans natural and supernatural world. And I'm glad to be here. Thank you guys for attending.
I'd like to start here. What is it about horror as a genre that drew you to this form of storytelling compared to other forms of storytelling? Was that always your first choice for it, or was there other genres that you were far more interested in? Either of you, very kind of anxious.
So actually, I grew up with a lot of horror stories. My mom got me into them when I was a little kid. Even if you met her now, you'd be like, how? Because she's a super Christian conservative woman. But I was like, yeah, she made me watch, The Exorcist as a kid by myself. But I was always into horror movies, horror stories. I just loved all that creepy stuff. And so I think like it was a given when I guess I started doing my own sort of stories, even if it's fantasy or even romance or whatever, there's always some element of horror that's getting introduced in. And it's just, I don't know, it just feels like me. And it's like a nice little release, very cathartic aspect. And I guess as kids, as well, especially if you're from a cultural background, a lot of stories that we're told by our parents are very creepy. As a way to make sure that we don't cause any trouble, get into any trouble. You want to be a good kid, you don't want, talk to my crew coming to get you, and talk to my crew in the Haitian folklore as the boogeyman. And then it's the historical aspect of the Duvalier regime who used the name Totomaku to represent his secret army that would kidnap people in the 80s. So it was like all this other stuff for the active fear. And, as a kid, even though it's like, I don't want to be fearful, but as you get older, it sticks with you and you start to understand a lot of the cultural context of it. Yeah. And it just makes it really interesting. So horror has just always been my thing. I love the whole themes. I love doing research on it. I love watching old school horror films, black and whites. And in some way, there's always going to be masterful horror coming from me.
Yeah, so for myself, growing up, I wasn't really too big into horror. I like horror, but that wasn't really like my top genre. But what I am is a fan of dark, gritty stories. I like stories that, whether you watch or read, you think to yourself, like, what the F am I reading? It gives you that really dark feeling, like you're digging into base human nature, right? So that's how I kind of spilled into horror, because I'm a fan of dark, gritty stories, and most authors are in that realm. So with Crescent City Monsters, what I wanted to do was create a my own version of the zombie story. So typically what you have is zombies, they're running around, kind of mindless. But I wanted to bring zombies into a level that you could consider the same level that you would consider vampires and werewolves, right? A vampire and wolves, they actually have romance, they have backstories, but I wanted to create zombies on that level, so that's where the artist came in, and that's how I ended up in art.
Yes, ma'am. Backing up just a little bit also, when you brought up growing up with your parents, introducing you to horror and things like that, were there any other cultural aspects as far as folklore that was introduced to you that you have found that you would put into your stories?
I'd say yes or no. For like, there's this huge fear of the figure of the Lugaru, which is essentially a werewolf.
Okay.
But the way that a lot of Haitians will usually talk about it is any type of shapeshifter who was associated with the witch.
Okay.
And like, for example, when I say you get sick, when you go to Haiti, you get sick.
Yeah.
They automatically say, oh, the Lugaru ate you, or it's eating you up.
They said that in your story, what was it called?
Like the Lugaru.
The Lugaru?
Yeah, and it's literally a werewolf.
Okay.
But just the context of the way they use it is, they usually refer to any type of shapeshifter who's a possible witch.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of superstition when it comes to a lot of Haitian folklore, just the Haitian culture in general.
Okay.
And it's not just Haiti too, there's a lot of different cultures in the Caribbean. A lot of them stem from Africa as well, and even voodoo. If you do this causes this is a chain reaction.
Right.
You need to do this in order to protect yourself. And not all of it is bad. A lot of it is just ways of teaching you a message. And a lot of it is also aspect of healing, protection, and taking care of your family and stuff like that. And that's aspects of that. I say it starts off on the level of trying to keep you in check as a kid, but as you get older, you start to realize, no, there's actually a lot of goodness in some of this. And a lot of that, unfortunately, has to do with you having to do your own research and stuff like that. And I try to put some of that in these groups.
No, because you do, because a lot of the villains, quote unquote, that is gonna face in your book are shape-shifting figures. They start off as human, they shift into bees, weird-looking birds and stuff like that. But what I find interesting is that you pull that inspiration from Haitian culture, but you can find similarities to that. There's no accident that when you're watching the Spider-Man film, that those villains are birds and weird animals and stuff like that, that they are pulling from some of those same traditions as well. So it's definitely a very familiar trope. They're very familiar tropes in these books that you will find in comic books throughout history. Newton, what's your approach?
Yeah, so growing up, my parents were very pragmatic and they were not storytellers. But later on, doing research for Crescent City Monsters, there's the idea of the voodoo laws, which are both common in New Orleans and Haiti. So there's some differences, but there are similarities. So that's what I wanted to introduce into my book. The idea of lovers is typically when you see lovers in either TV or books, they're something evil, right? And it's a little bit what Greg kind of touched on. People have this total evil viewpoint of these lovers, right? And they're these bad spirits, so bad, sometimes they call them gods, but they're really not. But that causes trouble, but it really isn't like that, right? There's just different aspects to these lovers. So I wanted to flip it, right? So the two lovers in my book, Parents and D, and Papa Light, they're heroes. They're trying to save the world instead of trying to corrupt souls.
Right. And we talked about that briefly. We were talking about how a lot of the popular horror that I find that African American creators are creating right now, they do two things very well. They embrace the fear that the community might be experiencing socially in the stories, but also they give their characters agency by their either becoming the monsters and then they're turning this and they're becoming empowered by these what happens to be monstrous, the transformations and things like that. Which approach do you tend to lean on? Do you tend to be the more empowering storyteller, or are you embracing the fear that a lot of your readers might be experiencing in day-to-day life?
I like to combine it, it just makes the story more interesting because both aspects, right? Horror has that built-in fear factor, right? So it just comes with the territory. And then the idea that you just mentioned empowering the characters in such a way that they themselves become monsters is an interesting concept too. Because, and I play around with that a little bit in my book. There's a line where I mentioned where magic is a thing that they use, right? But the more you use it, the more it corrupts the soul. So, and it turns you into a monster, right? Because you end up doing these things that, because it's easier and you have this power in your hands, it can easily corrupt you, right? So that's something I explore. So I like just exploring all aspects. So I'm very character driven. So anything that helps the reader understand where the character is coming from and kind of like dig, like I said, into that dark grittiness of just human nature in general. I love, so I just dig into it.
Okay.
And I say for me, I sort of have a goal of, as I said earlier, trying to change the narrative a little bit because there's a huge bastardization of a lot of African spirituality when it comes to the ministry. A lot of that started from old school horror films from 30s and 40s and going back into colonialism to make us fearful of our own culture. And that's the thing, you watch a lot of horror films that do depict aspects of voodoo and stuff like that. It's always a source of horror, of evil, and that adds more into the misconception that we have. And that's one of the things I've been enjoying as some of like the past decade of seeing Black people get into horror, and they haven't depicted voodoo and hoodoo in the sense that now you see characters who are using it as a way to actually battle some of the evil that's going on. And so that's been pretty cool to finally see that subversion. And a lot of my stories, even though it is a dark fantasy, it is a horror, but you see different characters doing different things, just like how all sorts of religion or traditional faiths, there are people who can use it for good, and there's people who will use it. Right? It's the same thing when it comes to African spirituality. There's folks who use it for the power of healing, protecting your family, protecting you, and all this other stuff. And then, of course, there's people doing the traditional curses that they're used to. So there's people who use Christianity. You have the folks who really believe in the studies, who believe in the commandments and treating people fairly with love, and you have the ones who use it to put down other people. So it's the same exact thing, except me, I'm trying my best to try to showcase the different aspects of different people. I pretty much don't want to try to use a lot of African spirituality as a source of evil in my stories, but if there are some like mischievous characters that you can read about from the original stories, then I'll use that as a context. And a lot of that comes from research because you can do a lot of research, just like how Newton, he is depicted probably by Saudi as sort of heroes. If you are aware of the actual traditions, you know that they're not these evil figures. They may not be people you want to mess with because they have all these powers, and if you cross them, that's your ass. But they're not these mischievous, evil figures that we'll see in, say, American Horror Story. who depicted Papa Wemba as if he was about something, and yet he was like this cocaine sniffing, demon, baby stealing demon. And I'm just like, it's totally left about tradition.
Yeah.
Now when people Google that figure, that's the intercession as well.
Right.
Not the actual old man who's there to guide you through your troubles and connect you to the babies. It's just one of those, like, this is the crap that we're trying our best to try to change and get away from.
Right. And also like the fact you're taking it from the ground up too, but you have kid-friendly stories as well. You don't just have adult storylines. And I like the fact that you're actually introducing, young readers to these characters as well. And sort of like now, not so much necessarily like indoctrination, but introducing them to these characters and this folklore young, so that they're not so fearful when they become adults. Knowing that Christianity is such a popular religion and so ingrained in African American culture, have you all ran into any problems trying to introduce your storylines and your characters to larger audiences? Do you ever get any pushback?
No, so
I guess the devil was the first thing right on the top. Somebody has said it. It's like, Satan, no, thank you.
Oh, yeah. So most people understand that this is a comic series, right?
Right.
If you as fiction, I've never had anybody approach me to step up to me, grab me by the collar and say, "You're doing the dirt."
The devil working.
But I mean, yeah, like I said, it's comic books, so I don't think people take it that seriously. It's comic books. You got to take it seriously.
We had a comment. You read the room.
So, what I mean to say is, but yeah, so I haven't had any negative pushback.
I mean, maybe it's something that wasn't become more popular.
Well, so what I try to do is I'm respectful to everyone's religion, right? So I would never, downplay anybody's religion over some other religion, no matter what I believe in. So in that way, I don't think anybody would or should attack me, based on my behavior and my work. So that's just my opinion.
I don't know. He's more popular than Oprah. What about you, Greg? Remember anything?
I actually don't know.
I know you never know. You probably see it out. You probably you're hunting trolls down. You trying to get into it with somebody. Nobody got into your DMs.
No, surprisingly no. I've always been sort of, I try to showcase a lot of respect, especially to the traditions. And I did go through something before this topic came out. I was working on a comic series where I depicted a particular figure a certain way because it's based off of some research that I had. And instead of asking some of the people who were actually in that culture about it, and so when I released some image of that particular figure, and in like a group, so a spiritual group, and I had people like, why would you pick up a adult person this way? And I was just like, what are you talking about? And since then, I reached out to a friend who's in that culture. He was just like, I see where your research led you to this. And sure, he is someone that you don't want to offend, you don't want to really worship, but there's still people who believe in this figure, so you might want to still claim they're doing certain things. And so, for me, that sort of prepared me to okay, going forward, I know how I'm going to tackle this. So if I'm inspired by it, I figure out just completely revamp it and turn it into someone that I can actually manipulate and do that without offending anybody. Right. So I think since then I've been able to steer clear of any stuff like that, but at the same time, a part of me, even though my mom was one of the biggest supporters, she doesn't really read my stories. And I'm glad about that, because I have a feeling for very conservative Christian backgrounds to be like, why you should tell these people these stories and all this other stuff. So that's one of the things where I'm just like, should we have a book and should tell people about it? But I'm like, please don't do this.
I mean, oddly enough, from what most of y'all's stories aren't necessarily like gory. I don't think either of y'all.
I got some more.
Yeah,
But it's like kids. Well, I wouldn't recommend this to anyone doing this.
How do you handle that? Like, I've noticed like that was something I noticed when I was actually in vineyard, is that I would have books out, and most of them were typically adult, but it was always a mom bringing up her son and saying, "Yes, he likes Miles Morales. What did he got here?" And you're like, it's like, well, if he loves blood, yes. You know, it's like, how do you navigate that? Well, you got kids. You were slick with it.
Yeah, so it's funny, with this, even though it is a coming of age type of book, and the main character is a teenager, I originally had the character as an adult. And what made me change it is when I started showcasing images of it online, I had parents automatically say, "Oh, this is the son of Nancy. I can't wait to introduce this to my kid."
Right, yeah.
And I was like, I didn't think of it as like, oh crap, I thought it was wait. I actually would like for you to be introduced to some of these figures.
Right.
So I ended up changing his name to a teenager. And all of a sudden that opened up even more of a venue for like parents, especially Caribbean parents, sort of like, oh, I grew up with these stories, so this could be like a continuation. And without really, I took out some of the colorful languages, so I blocked them, but the violence and the gore remained the same, and people were totally cool with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember even a couple of years into Islanda, I made a post just to see something, because I'm not fearful of nudity or sexuality or anything like that. But I was just curious if I introduced some aspect of nudity in Islanda, how people feel. I had people say, I probably would avoid that issue. I would not like that issue. But I'm thinking to myself, like, but it's a pretty gory book.
Right.
And yet I had parents go to the book and say, my kids would love this. And I'm like, you don't see that? Like, he literally bites off his hair. Right. One thing, that's totally cool. We have figures ripping each other off. Totally cool.
Yeah.
But anything like sexual or violent part is just like, no, kid can't see this. So I haven't had much of an issue with parents buying this for their kids. I did a prequel, which it is more child friendly, but that was mainly because it's supposed to be a prequel, but it's not being, he was a spider before he becomes a human. And I just imagine it as a sort of, almost like a We Bear Bears when they become kids, when they were kids, that episode of having fun with that. And that ended up still being, I guess, the kids were much younger. Parents were just like, oh, there's some parents, my teen is doing this, I'm doing this, but this little one, I can introduce them to this is not a story. And then when they get older, they've seen the other ones, so they're really introduced to that concept. But that wasn't like I'm trying to get sales for you.
Yeah.
It was more so of how I saw the story being told, because there's a lot of things that I set up in that story that does become important later on down the line.
Cool. Yeah, for me, so Presence of the Monsters does have some gore, there's some violence in it, but it happens it doesn't happen equally throughout. Yeah. So it's definitely not a kid's book. It's got such a sexual subject in it. So I wouldn't recommend it for anyone under 16, just to be safe. If you're one of those more mature kids, 13, so it's kind of hard sometimes, and you are right. Greg did do the right thing, have like a kid's version of his book, because I feel sometimes I feel like, oh man, I wouldn't want these kids to enjoy the story, but it's really not for them.
But be real, when y'all were young, really little, y'all was watching all the crazy horror films, right? Yes, I'm pretty sure y'all saw The Fly when y'all were kids. And totally cool, very, I mean, Freddy Krueger and stuff like that. So,
Never.
yeah. So that's what I feel when we become older and we're looking at how young kids are. We're just like, oh my God, no, we gotta protect them. But it's like, remember when you were that age, you were watching creepy ass stuff. And kids to this day still love that stuff. They might not show their parents.
Five Nights at Freddy's.
Five Nights, yes.
Yeah.
Five Nights at Freddy's. That game is creepy.
Right.
Oh hell, my brother, who he's obsessed with it. He knows all the stories, he knows all that, and that thing is creepy as hell.
I have to admit, it's interesting because I teach comic book classes, and so the kids come with a lot of anime and manga background to the class. And a lot of what they draw is horror. It's very horrific stories. We're talking about 12 and under. And it doesn't matter the background. I've taught classes in a suburban neighborhood, predominantly white neighborhood. Whole bunch of girls, teenage girls, that sit around. Okay, this story is about a murderous teddy bear that's in love with a monkey that's going to kill their mother. It's like literally this is class. They tell them the story. And then on the other end, I'm in a detention center, and they tell them the same story. It's like it's a horror film. About to go drive down on these kids. They sparks. About to kill them. And they take the girl. It's like literally like it doesn't discriminate. Like it's almost like it's a very like horror something that I don't know, like a kid is naturally drawn to, or like something that comes in their dreams and then they express it. It doesn't necessarily feel like it's a bad thing. Like it's sort of like I never walk away feeling like, oh, these kids are psychopaths. Like it's never like that. It's always like they need to express themselves.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I think a lot of it is also the aspects of the taboo aspect of it.
Yes.
Like we know kids are supposed to stay away from it, but it's because of all that and trying to restrict and protect it from it, it's just very fascinating, and just like you said, every kid, when it comes to story time, wants a horror story. I've been teaching kids filmmaking for 10 years.
Right.
Without fail,
yes.
Every semester they want to make a horror movie. Yeah. Or a horror trailer, something with some type of aspect of horror, and they get so excited. You can introduce them to so many different genres.
Yeah.
They'll choose either typical jealousy thing, or she say, he say type of thing, or horror. And in the end, they'll turn that and say, she say thing.
Right, it's horror, right?
Yeah.
Somebody got that.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, right? Most of the fairy tales are art.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Think about it, all this horrific thing happens.
That's a Cinderella, stepsister's getting her eyes plucked out.
Yeah.
Even though she's like, Wizard of Oz, man. It's like, hey, okay. 14, I read the Wizard of Oz after watching the movie a couple of times. I was like, man, this book is really violent compared to the movie.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So, it's encouraged. It's like, but they just kind of treated it up as fairy tales and stuff.
That's how we became horror fans. We were kids, right?
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who became a horror fan as an adult.
As an adult.
I was a fan of it as a kid.
That's a good one. Are there any questions? Shoot this to the audience. I can come down there with the microphone. Does anybody have any questions that I can ask? My friend here? Hold on. Don't be scared, y'all. Don't be scared. No, you should be scared.
How y'all doing? Ed Jackson here, if you don't know why you are. My question for both of you is, what is your dream project, whether it be film or comics? Would you stick to horror, or would you like to see kind of a fusion of different elements?
You scared me, so I've always wanted to be a film director, and one of my my dreams was actually to make more horror films that depicted Black people as the main characters. And so when I got more interested in, working on comics and stuff, and I've just been teaching film for years, I was very excited to see when Jordan Peele started going on and creating these horror films. So things that I wanted to see, I wanted to see more. They were out there, but they weren't as big mainstream as they have become with Jordan Peele now directing and producing a lot of these various horror films. So that's been pretty cool. That's still a dream of mine to one day find the time to get back into it and join him in his ranks, I guess you could say. But for now, I'm totally happy and content with just doing comic books and showcasing various aspects of Black culture and Black horror, which is cool. I would love to write a brother / Dr. Who book of Marvel. I think that would be cool. Or even Shadow Man in Family Comics. And one thing that I'm surprised with Shadow Man being a Black horror superhero, he has yet to ever be written by a Black person. And it's always white people showcasing through African spirituality. But I'm just like, why don't you find a Black person who has some context and background? I think they would come up with some really cool stuff. Not to say the stories are bad, some of them are actually a lot of fun. But I think you would get something completely different if you actually get somebody of that background writing these stories. I think you learn a lot more than seeing how a lot of these white writers have depicted the characters. So that's definitely a factor. And as I said, Dr. Who, that would be a dream when I came.
It's funny you mentioned Dr. Voodoo because I always thought the main character in Crescent City Monsters was sort of like a very attractive, sexy looking brother Voodoo. Yeah, with the man, I'm telling you, check out the book. I'm not lying. Any other questions? We got to talk. Go ahead.
So, yeah, for me, there's what that's not big ones. So, for me, my dream project was, would be, and actually is, working on comic books. So this is my first comic book series, and it's gotten some really good feedback. People really love the book, but it feels like I'm just starting out because I really only started 5 years ago. And I feel like there's so much more that I can do. So for me, Presence in Monsters is my dream project working on it. And I just want to build on it and explore a lot of the characters and the world that I built, and just keep working on it as long as possible. And Greg mentioned working with movies, and that is something that interests me too. Before I even started creating comic books, I was really looking to create a web series on YouTube, and I like writing out the script, reached out to some actors, but it just didn't work out because of the time and money. It was very expensive. Then that's when I rediscovered comic books. I was on Kickstarter, and I saw independent creators creating their comic books. And I was like, yeah, I used to draw comic books when I was a kid and sell to classmates. And, I was like, okay, if I can't do a web series, I can do a comic book. So I got into that.
Earlier, you guys were talking about horror books and movies that really sort of shaped you. Do you have any recommendations that are just oldies but goodies, or new stuff that you think deserves more love?
Yeah, so I give Robert Kirkman, I'm sure, Walking Dead into the Bible. You guys got one? So yeah, Walking Dead, that really sparked my interest in just non-superhero comics. Like, I've read non-superhero comics before, but when I was introduced to Walking Dead years ago, I was at a point where I was kind of like jaded by comic books. I wasn't really buying comic books. I wasn't buying as much comic books as I used to. And then I read The Walking Dead, and I was like, man, this is great. I love this. So that inspired me. And another Kirkman book that I really like is Outcast. enjoy that book too.
I brought up earlier, I'm a huge fan of like, old school horror films. There was a film producer, his name was Val Lewin, who made these black and white, like 1930s, 1940s horror films, and he used to call them terror films, not horror films. And those movies were so much fun for me. And they were B movies, and they were like the competition for Universal Studios at the time. Of course, Universal Studios, they won. You know, those are the characters that we remember, and they had like a high budget, they had crazy makeup. But the thing with Valu, because it didn't have a lot of the budget to do all these horrific things, they were more psychological horror, and they would scare people at the time through not showing you what was going on. And so you would find very weird, creative ways to really try to get into people's imaginations. So Valu, in a lot of his movies, he did movies like Cat People, I Walked with a Zombie, Seventh Victim, Eye of the Dead, and a whole bunch of these great films. What else? David Hein is one of my favorite comic writers. He did one crazy psychosexual horror book called Street of Grace. I would say check it out. I love Black Hero, The Passion. Both movies, and that was like one of the first, that and Candyman was some of the first times I saw like these terrifying black villains, because we don't usually see that. Usually we have that joke, black person dies first in the horror film. But that was the first time we're seeing them as the actual villains of choice. It's like, oh, it's depicting us as evil, but you know, they're the ones who's causing it, which is sort of fun for me as a kid, discovering those movies. I thought was pretty cool.
One old school TV series that we movie is Dark Shadows. I enjoy Dark
I
Shadows.
still haven't watched it. Months ago, it's cool. Barnabas.
Did you ever read the Shadow Man where they met Aerosmith?
I saw the cover, but I know what you're talking about, but I didn't read it.
What? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I remember seeing the cover. Yeah.
How do I not know this? Whoa.
Any more questions? You got anyone? Oh, sorry.
First of all, I just want to say thanks for you guys taking the time to do this finish. It's really informative. My first one is, so you guys sent it from New York, but you're rocking the Baltimore Midnight. Did you get that here?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Baltimore Midnight. They carry my voice hard, and they always support my Kickstarters. I'm planning to go there. I think we're going tonight.
I think we're planning for tonight.
Yeah, so to buy some more gear.
So I was going to ask you guys, my first exposure to sort of the horror comic genre was Marvel's Tales of the Zombie. And just thinking about it, my recollection is the creative team was sent to Haiti to kind of research the culture and came back with this comic together. Can you guys comment on what you think in terms of delivering a job or you expose that? Did you enjoy it?
I haven't read it.
Did you
So
I'm not familiar with, I know all the Tales of the Zombie. I do know with the Brother Voodoo character, there was a lot of research actually done with that character, which is funny. I think when I was younger, when I discovered the character, I was thinking, why the hell would one Haitian character be this guy? You know, like, this is so dumb and offensive. But years later, when I finally actually took the time to read the original Brother Voodoo comics, I realized, holy crap, they're actually taking actual aspects of the tradition and implementing it as characters. And I started to realize this is one of the very first times where you see a figure actually using the tradition of voodoo as a superhero. And I was looking at it in like the context of me as a offended person, because I've seen this so many times with Haitian depictions. But this is actually them trying to flip the switch. And I don't know if they actually, I doubt they actually went to Haiti to create the character, but there was definitely a lot of research. For example, in the voodoo religion, twins is extremely important. Like twins are very powerful. They have this sort of ability for magic. That's the belief. And Brother Voodoo himself is a twin. His twin brother dies. His spirit fuses with him, and that's how they become the superhero that they see. And so that was one thing. And there were different things I was catching. And then when I read some backstory on the creation, they were actually trying to be very respectful with the character. Over time, some of that got lost, and you started to get a lot of weird stereotypes from the character, and you would get, he definitely become like a sort of a second-rate Doctor Strange for a little bit, but I think over time, we're starting to see that you can do a lot more with this character, and a lot of it does come down to do your research on the background before you just depict any old person. For example, a lot of people like to depict wickedness and all this other stuff, but it's like, have you actually done research on that faith or asked an actual wicked, you know, what actually is part of your culture and what isn't just, I'm just using your name just to do magic. And I'm pretty sure you'll get a lot of context from actual people and just be like, so this will be cool to depict. They will introduce you to something that you never thought about, and that opens up the floodgates.
What is your tell those zombies and stuff? Oh, you're saying the whole title was the whole series?
Yeah, that was like, I think the late 1970s.
And they applied the research to the whole series?
I'm sorry?
You said they applied the research to the whole series?
I don't know if the whole series was, but I remember specifically in like the editor's notes in the first few issues, said, you know, we said people to research the topic.
Yeah, I wrote that up, yeah.
You know, it's interesting when you look back historically through comics, a good portion of vast majority of the first black superheroes or characters are typically tied to some type of supernatural or occult or Haitian or voodoo characters. So Brother Voodoo, DC has Papa Midnight. We also have what's the name of this guy? There was another. I'm not sure if it was Haitian, but there's another Marvel character that was tied to the supernatural. What you also find is that most of those characters are also like disguised and shrouded, and they don't show their face a lot. Some of the first black characters like Lothar in comics, they were tied to you know, the supernatural. Also, there's a famous I think it's called Space Wars. This is from the 40s, the 50s, where like one of the first black characters is a supernatural character tied to voodoo, and he saves the world. But what the ironic thing is, because of racial issues, they never show his face throughout the book. So you don't see the back of a headdress, his hand, here and there, even on the cover, it's the back of his head on the cover of the book. But also tied to voodoo culture and stuff like that. So what you'll find, especially because horror was such a big draw even back then, is that a lot of times when you have a black character, Nightshade, even a female character from First Appearance in Captain America, she was also tied to horror and stuff like that. Also, you find that a lot, you know, throughout history. Any other questions? Anybody have any? Yes.
What is your words of inspiration for other people who are looking to kind of not maybe do the same genre, but like just do what you do because you guys are inspiring in your own particular genre, but other people in general, I think you guys are super inspiring. I can't wait to read that. And I'm not even a complete horror fan, and I'm like, I can't wait to read that. I want to be scared out of my mind. I can't wait to read that. So maybe not super scared, but you know, what are your words of inspiration for other people who, you know, may not have the same or just this, other people who want to write comics, what are your words of inspiration?
So, usually when I get asked something like that, I usually just say, if you're not gonna write the story, who will? You know, who's gonna tell your story if not you? But when it comes to depicting other people's sort of backgrounds, don't be afraid to reach out and just say, hey, can I get a second pair of eyes or something? You know, if you're somebody who knows of this background. Like I've had people reach out to me and ask, can I hire you as my editor because I don't want to disrespect anything and you can guide me in a way of not, offending somebody. So maybe you're reaching out various people to be a consultant. I try to reach out to more than one person of a particular background because you get one idea, but that goes back to saying not every person agrees is a monolith. Everyone has their own different sort of background and upbringing while still being all black, being all girl, whatever it is. Everyone has a different thing. So sometimes you can get a good range of aspect of, well, these five say do not depict this, so I'm going to listen to them. Each of them give you a different sort of content. So I wouldn't steer clear of if you have a story that you think would be cool, just do it. But do as much research as possible. Find those people with that background and actually listen to them. Listen to every single one of them. See where their themes will align with what they're doing and take into consideration that your story might be different from your original conception because now you have more of a bigger perspective of what is the actuality of what you're currently doing.
So instead of words of inspiration, I guess I'll give more advice, and you might hear this a lot in terms of just creators in general, whether you're writing or creating a movie, just create something that you're familiar with, that you know, right, that you're comfortable with, and so that you can build on it. Like let's say you grew up on a farm, but you want to write a sci-fi. Right? The sci-fi that starts with, I mean, that's a crazy idea, right? Like, nobody's ever done that. And you know the details of the farm, you can read that. It's going to take a while.
You know where I came from, though.
Yeah, so you can make it real. And believe it or not, people can tell when you're being real in the story, that you're adding details and touches to the story. So that's one of the best pieces of advice that I can give.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you guys. That was actually what I was going to say, starting from what you know, because this is a wonderful example of that. Even though it's but they're coming from Haitian background, coming from being fans of horror, they basically started with what they know, and they have. He said this first started out, but these dudes are way too modest. These are like several volumes of comics fitted up here. There's plenty of content that they have created. These dudes, yeah, they might have just started, but they're definitely professionals and well versed in this genre for sure. So don't let the modesty fool you. These dudes are very capable storytellers. If I can get a round of applause for these children. People on the stage, I appreciate it. And
Can I just give one shout out to the other black comic horror books like Philadelphia.
We have Philadelphia, Witch Doctor,
Better Group.
Is anyone here familiar with Better Group? That is, look that up for English comics.
John Jennings has a book that I like a lot. Cool.
Blue Hand Mojo.
Blue Hand Mojo, I love that book. Yeah.
The whole, just come to our table, we're looking for it. So, we're in the B session, the artist alley. We're actually sitting next to each other. And we actually even brought some books, so if you guys want to check them out here right now before we go to our tables, it would be pretty cool as well.
That's it.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
I knew it, don't say it. You have to talk about it. No, you don't.
Oh, no, so I know.
Oh, okay.
Sac-passé.
That was fantastic.
Moi, parler petit peu.
Oh.
We're from Florida, so.
Ah, so you pick up so easy.
No, you guys are awesome. This is so inspiring. I think it's amazing.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, of course, no, I'm just like looking at, what was the name of the comic again? That was one of the.
Oops. Other than that, you guys, great sound.
Oh, good.
Yeah, because somebody still got your.
I literally almost.